Fortunately, I was well, but I didn't fancy it. But I decided to take a journey into myself rather than have to sort of just make notes on things that everybody knew about anyway, dates, names, faces.
I mean, like before the book was sold to the publisher, did they ask you or the person that you wrote this book with for like an outline, a treatment, like 60 or 70 pages of what's going to be in this book? And then were they looking for spice? Were they looking for drugs, sex, and rock and roll, or were they looking for your life story?
I think they were looking for all that. I think it's in, everybody, we all crave it, and you have to see what's been going on in this country for the last 9 months. It's what people crave. As much as they say they detest it, they really want to see that. And that's the business you're in, or the media people. But I think what they wanted to get a story of this band, the band The Kinks. I mean, lots of people know the name The Kinks, but they don't know who we are. So interesting that when we met outside, you said, "Who does your teeth?" David Letterman.
And I hope you didn't take offense at that.
Absolutely did, yeah.
Oh, you did?
But when we first went on American television, they said, get the guy with a gap in his teeth, stick him at the back, and I happened to be the lead singer. So I didn't do a lot of press, so I was kind of shy about that. So we haven't been a really high-profile band. And I thought the best way to look at myself this way was to be a 70-year-old and lose some of the vanity. Because I could feel free to write whatever I wanted about myself and not be afraid and hold back. And I certainly didn't want to set the record straight. I just wanted to write a story about this fantastic band that I played in and be as truthful as possible. And this was the easiest way into it.
First, if what was meant to be a humorous remark offended you off stage, you have my apology for that. Secondly,
It's all right. You're entitled to your opinion.
But
Has he got bad teeth as well?
No, not bad. Just a little gap, such as you have.
Yeah.
You mentioned...
That was male bonding, though, wasn't it?
It was just a way of being offhanded. And again, if it did offend you, you have my sincere apology. You mentioned that you were not a high-profile band here.
Yeah.
What about there, when the Kinks and the Beatles and the Rolling Stones were all in operation? Were you high profile in the UK?
Yes, very. Teeth and all. In fact, they did cap my teeth for the first gig I did on television. I looked like Bugs Bunny.
Look, I don't want this to turn into a theme show,
Let's do this. Let's do this. Right, let's get into this now. Well, I came over here, teeth and all, and very high profile. And for a time, we were the biggest band. That's the way England is. It's a small country. You can do that. When we came here, it was totally different. We came from like 4 major #1 singles abroad, and we had to start in New York. They knew us. LA, they knew us. That's a big country.
Right.
And you didn't have MTV, so you had to tour and get in people's faces and play to them live. And so it was a bit of a shock for us.
We are talking tonight with the author of X-Ray. His name is Ray Davies from the Kinks. The toll-free is up and running at 800-952-2788. We'll be right back, teeth and all, after these messages. From Mitsubishi. We are back. Here's Andy on the toll-free in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Hello.
Hello. How you doing, Tom?
I'm fine, Andy. Thanks for watching. Thanks for calling.
Okay. I'm just curious, Ray. Who are the people you listen to as far as music today? Who would you consider like actually the good music of today's generation?
Well, right. Today it's very interesting because in England there's a new movement of bands, British bands like Blur, Oasis, and indie bands. I listen to those, obviously, because there's a connection.
When you say indie bands, that...
Independent.
Independent, okay.
Well, it came because we in England, in the late, or the 80s, 1980s, independent record companies started, small companies. But now the majors have eaten those up.
Are all the albums that the Kinks made in the 60s, are those still available now on CDs in this country?
Yeah.
They've been transferred, right?
Not legally, but they are.
Well, it's never stopped us,
No, sure. But yes, it's the big thing now is to do catalogs. All the record companies now are into catalog. That's the whole sort of mainstay of their business. So, yeah, I try to keep abreast of all the new bands. It's important to do that.
And do you have any in your collection, Andy?
I don't know. I'm just curious. Do any of them ask you for advice or anything, or do you kind of hang out with any of the new bands or anything?
Well, I was in the hotel the other day and I met Damon from Blur, who I know as a friend anyway. He's the lead singer of Blur, and I had a talk with him. But you can't really advise. I do sort of songwriting courses in England, but you can't teach people how to write songs. You can only sort of put them in a direction.
Interesting name for a band, Blow.
Blur.
Blur. Blur. Blur.
It's a Freudian slip, yeah.
Blur, yeah. It's Friday night, it's late, you know. Horse is getting close to the barn, you know.
But the hair looks great.
Andy, I'm glad you called.
Thanks a lot.
All right, have a great weekend now.
You too, bye-bye.
All right. It's all a blur to me anyway, you know. There are so many differing views of the 60s. Some say it was the most honest time. Some say it was the most hypocritical time. Some say it was the most exciting time, the most boring. What's the 60s to you?
I think the best description of the 60s is that John Lennon quote, you know, if you remember it, you couldn't have been there. I like that. But in the book, X-Ray, the 75-year-old is me, RD, when I'm 75, and he's very cynical. That's another thing about writing a character, like writing myself in the future, because I could be like that. And I probably will, unfortunately, be like him.
In what way?
Well, be bitter, twisted, and cynical.
Oh, you?
Yeah.
No way. Not you, kid.
Well, that's...
Why does your story stops when you're 29 years old? Why?
29?
Well, the autobiography takes us to when you're 29 years old.
Yeah. Well, that's another story. It's just like, it's a song cycle. I wrote a lot of songs in that period. I think it was a good time to bring the story to an end there, because the music and the life story kind of dovetail.
It is the most inventive autobiography I've read of in many, many years. And
yeah, but it's also true. That's the thing. I think the misconception people have is that it's a novel. It isn't. Everything's based on truth.
I appreciate your time tonight.
No problem.
My pleasure to see you, sir.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us. Ray Davies is the guest. The book is called X-Ray, The Life and Times of a Great Band called The Kinks and a great artist named Ray Davies. We'll be right back to wrap it up for the week after these messages.